The rain fell softly against the tall windows of Ravenhurst School as the evening bell echoed through the long stone corridors. Nora Whitmore hurried up the staircase to the East Dormitory, her shoes tapping lightly against the old steps. She had spent the last hour in the music room, practicing the violin piece that she and Amelia were meant to perform together next month. Amelia had promised to meet her there after prep hours, but she never came. When Nora pushed open the door to their shared room, she expected to find Amelia lying on her bed, pretending to read while secretly snacking on her favorite toffees. Instead, the room felt strangely silent, as though someone had stepped out only moments ago. A faint draft moved the curtain near Amelia's bed, and Nora noticed the window left slightly open despite the cold weather. She walked closer. Amelia's bed was perfectly made. Too perfect. The blanket lay smooth, the pillow untouched. Amelia never left her bed neat. She often left strands of her long auburn hair on the sheets, scatterings of notes, or the faint scent of her lavender soap. Tonight, there was nothing. Then Nora saw it. A small slip of paper half tucked beneath an ink bottle on Amelia's desk. The words were written in black ink, slightly smudged, as if written in haste. Do not let them find the second book. Nora read the sentence 3 times, feeling her heartbeat quicken. She whispered Amelia's name, hoping her friend might answer from somewhere behind her. Only silence replied. She opened Amelia's drawer. Inside lay her notebook, a half-eaten chocolate bar, and the key to her violin case. Everything looked untouched since the morning. But something was wrong. Amelia never went anywhere without her notebook. She called it her lifeline, a place where she wrote her thoughts, her fears, her music, everything. Yet here it was, abandoned. A distant rumble of thunder rolled through the sky. The lamp above Nora flickered. The old building often reacted to storms with groaning pipes and dimming lights, but tonight the air felt different. Heavy. Watchful. She stepped back and noticed faint mud traces near the doorway. As though someone with wet shoes had entered the room, stopped, then turned around again. But Nora had not seen anyone on the staircase. She reached for Amelia's wardrobe door, hesitating for a heartbeat before pulling it open. Her friend's coat still hung inside, dripping slightly at the hem. Cold water pooled beneath it. Amelia had been here recently. Very recently. But where had she gone after returning soaked from the rain? Suddenly, footsteps echoed down the corridor. Slow. Measured. Like someone pacing deliberately. Nora held her breath, listening. The steps stopped right outside their door. She felt her chest tighten. Whoever stood there did not knock. Did not speak. They simply stood still, as if listening for movement inside. Nora remained frozen beside Amelia's wardrobe, waiting for the handle to turn. But after a long moment, the footsteps moved away, fading into the distance. Nora exhaled shakily and turned back toward Amelia's desk. Her eyes fell again on the strange note. Do not let them find the second book. She had no idea what it meant, but her instincts whispered something dangerous. As another flash of lightning lit the room, Nora felt a sudden certainty. Amelia had not run away. Something had happened. And this note was the first clue. Nora picked it up, carefully folding it, unaware that on the back of the paper, a faint symbol had begun to appear under the heat of her fingers. A symbol she had never seen before. A symbol that did not belong in any school library. A symbol that did not belong in this world at all. Nora sat on Amelia's bed, the note resting lightly in her palm. The storm outside grew louder, pressing against the windows as if urging her to move, to search, to understand. She unfolded the paper again, tracing the odd smudge at the corner. As her fingertips warmed the surface, the faint symbol grew clearer. It was a circle divided by a single vertical line, with 3 small marks along the left edge. At first, it reminded her of a library stamp or an old crest, but something about it felt unsettling. It looked almost alive in the flickering light. A sharp knock startled her. She quickly folded the note and slipped it into her pocket before opening the door. Miss Aldrich, the dormitory matron, stood with her lantern raised. Her eyes, usually soft and polite, held an edge of suspicion. "Nora, is Amelia back yet?" "No, miss. She was not here when I returned." Miss Aldrich surveyed the room with a stern frown. The dripping coat in the wardrobe had dried into a darker shade, exposing the water stains on the wooden floor. The matron narrowed her eyes at the sight. Strange. The weather turned bad only moments ago. Nora kept her gaze steady. Amelia did come back. She must have. Her coat is soaked. Miss Aldrich pressed her lips tightly, as though weighing her next words. Finally, she stepped back into the corridor. "If she returns, you are to inform the staff immediately. Do not go looking for her on your own." She closed the door before Nora could ask anything else. Nora sat down again, thinking hard. Amelia had clearly returned to the dormitory, left a strange note, and vanished just as quickly. But why had she hidden the symbol? Why would she warn Nora about a second book? As she pondered, a sudden gust of wind pushed the window wider, scattering a few loose pages across the floor. Nora rushed to close it, but stopped halfway. Across the courtyard, in the darkness, one of the library windows glowed faintly with a dim golden light. The library should have been locked hours ago. Only staff had the keys, and even then, no one visited this late. Her breath caught as a silhouette drifted past the window. Tall. Stooped. Almost gliding. Then it vanished. Nora backed away, bumping into Amelia's desk. The ink bottle toppled, rolling until it hit the floor with a soft clink. As she crouched to retrieve it, her hand brushed against something taped beneath the desk drawer. A small folded page. She carefully peeled it free and opened it. The writing was unmistakably Amelia's. Neat. Precise. Urgent. "Nora, if you find this, it means they know. The books are not just books. Do not trust the teachers. Do not trust the prefects. And if you hear the footsteps, do not follow them. They are not human. Find the red book. It begins where the fire ended." Nora stared at the message, her breath shallow. The fire. The forbidden library. The books. Everything Amelia had been researching. Suddenly, footsteps sounded again in the corridor. Not slow and measured like before. These were light, quick, almost restless. As though someone were pacing back and forth. Nora stepped toward the door, her hand hovering above the handle. The footsteps halted instantly, as if sensing her presence. Silence stretched long and thin. Then came a whisper. So soft it could have been the wind. "Nora." She froze. It was Amelia's voice. Surely it was. But it came from the hallway, and the voice trembled with a fear Nora had never heard before. Nora reached for the handle, her fingers trembling. She wanted to throw open the door and run to her friend. But Amelia's warning echoed in her mind. Do not follow the footsteps. They are not human. She stepped back, pulse racing, just as the whisper rose again. Nora. Please. The light overhead flickered. The door handle twitched, as if someone on the other side was slowly testing it. Nora stumbled away. Her back hit the wardrobe. The handle stilled. The whisper ceased. The corridor fell silent. She stood there, shaking, unable to move. Whatever that voice belonged to, she knew one thing for certain. It was not Amelia. The night deepened over Ravenhurst School, and the storm eased into a steady drizzle. Yet Nora felt as though the air inside the dormitory had grown colder, as if the whisper that was not Amelia still lingered in the walls. She lit the small bedside lamp, the only warm light in the room, and clutched the folded message Amelia had hidden beneath the desk. Find the red book. It begins where the fire ended. Nora stared at those words until they blurred. Only one place in the entire school matched that description, the old underground library, sealed decades ago after the fire that claimed 3 students' lives. The teachers never spoke of it except in strict warnings. Pupils whispered about it only in secret. And Amelia had been searching for it. A faint tapping drew Nora to the window. 3 soft taps. Pause. 3 again. She approached cautiously. The courtyard below shimmered with rain, and mist curled around the stone archways. A figure stood near the shadow of an old oak tree. Cloaked. Motionless. For a moment, Nora thought it might be a teacher. But no teacher stood that still, and none wore something so dark it seemed to swallow the moonlight. Then the figure lifted its head. Nora gasped and stepped back. Where a face should have been, there was only darkness. A smooth black void, shifting faintly like smoke. The figure raised an arm and pointed directly at her window. Nora lunged for the lamp switch, plunging the room into darkness. Her heart hammered loudly enough that she feared it would echo through the hallway. Do not trust the prefects. Do not trust the teachers. The message tightened around her mind like a warning bell. She waited, breath shallow, until she dared peek again through the slit in the curtain. The courtyard was empty. The oaken tree stood alone, its branches dripping water onto the grass. Whoever or whatever had stood there was gone. Nora retreated to Amelia's desk and unlocked the bottom drawer. Inside lay Amelia's sketchbook. She flipped through the pages quickly. Portraits. Notes. Musical bars. And then an unfinished charcoal sketch caught her eye. A drawing of the underground library. Tall shelves. Broken ladders. Charred beams. And at the center of the room, a pedestal holding a single book with a red cover. Beneath the sketch, Amelia had written one line. The first book brings them. The second book hides them. The third book controls them. Nora's hands trembled. She turned the page, expecting more. Instead, she found something far worse. A second sketch. A shadowy figure with a blank face, standing behind a window. Her window. Nora slammed the sketchbook shut. The storm outside had almost faded, yet inside the dormitory the air remained heavy, thick with unseen eyes. She walked to the door and pressed her ear against the wood. Silence. Not even the distant murmur of late-night staff. If she wanted answers, she knew where to go. The library. Taking Amelia's sketchbook and the messages, she slipped on her shoes and wrapped a scarf around her neck. The corridor felt unnervingly long, stretching into dim pools of lamplight. Nora moved quietly, wary of every creak and shadow. As she reached the staircase leading down to the main hall, she heard it. A single footstep behind her. Not hurried. Not slow. Measured. The same kind of step she had heard earlier. Nora turned, pulse racing. No one stood there. But halfway down the corridor, the faint glow of a lantern flickered briefly, then died. She forced herself to keep walking toward the library wing. Her fingers shook as she touched the banister, but she kept moving. She could not stop now. She had to find the red book. She had to find Amelia. When she reached the library doors, she froze. A soft stream of golden light shone from underneath. The door, which should have been locked, stood slightly ajar. Nora pushed it open. The air inside was dusty and cold. Bookshelves towered over her like giants, their shadows bending across the floor. At the far end, the reading lamps glowed faintly, though no one stood near them. Nora stepped inside, and the door clicked shut behind her. She spun, reaching for the handle. Her fingertips had barely touched it when a voice echoed softly through the darkness of the library. Nora Whitmore. You should not have come here. The rain had not stopped by morning. It came down in thin, icy threads, tapping softly against the windows as though urging me to stay indoors. But I could not. Not after what I had felt outside Rowan's window. Not after hearing him utter words he should not be able to form. I set out early, umbrella in hand, the cold wind pushing against me as I walked through Larkspur Lane. The houses on this street always seemed a little too quiet, and that morning they looked almost abandoned. Curtains were drawn tightly shut. Not a soul stood at a window. Halfway down the lane, I stopped in front of number 14. The house where Mrs. Aldrich had lived until her mysterious death last winter. Rumors had spread about flickering lights and strange noises echoing from the empty building since then. I had dismissed them as gossip. Until now. A faint blue glow pulsed from behind the front door, soft but unmistakable. I moved closer, my breath catching. Every instinct told me to walk away, but something stronger urged me forward. Slowly, I reached out and pressed my hand against the door. The glow vanished instantly. I stepped back, my heart thudding. A single thought whispered through my mind. Whatever was happening to Rowan began long before he was born. Across the street, a figure moved behind a curtain. I turned sharply, but the curtain dropped before I could see the face watching me. I wanted answers. I needed them. And I knew exactly who might have them. Mrs. Pennington. The oldest resident on Larkspur Lane. The one everyone said had lived through more secrets than the town liked to admit. She kept her curtains open even on the gloomiest days, and as I approached her house, I saw her sitting in her armchair, staring directly at me. She stood before I reached the door, opening it as though she had been expecting me. I knew you would come, she said. My throat tightened. You know about Rowan. I know about all of them, she whispered. The children who see what others cannot. The children marked before birth. My knees weakened. Marked by what? She glanced past me, her gaze fixed on something over my shoulder. When she spoke again, her voice trembled. By the thing that lives beneath Larkspur Lane. And then she shut the door. I staggered back, cold fear creeping up my spine. Shadows shifted along the pavement as the wind howled, and for a moment, I could swear they moved with purpose. When I reached home later, drenched and trembling, I heard Rowan laughing upstairs. A normal, innocent sound. But when I walked into his room, he stopped. Slowly, he turned towards me and lifted his hand. He said you were coming, he murmured. He said you finally heard him. I tried to speak, but Rowan's eyes darkened, the smallest flicker of blue glinting in their depths. Mummy, he whispered, he wants to show you what's under the floorboards. My breath froze. Please, I forced out, tell me who he is. Rowan smiled. A smile that was not his own. The one who woke up. Before I could move, tiny footsteps echoed beneath the floorboards. Then something knocked once from under the house. A single, hollow tap that made every light in the room flicker. And Rowan whispered, he is listening. The night after Rowan spoke of the thing beneath the floorboards, sleep refused to come. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, every creak of the house echoing far too loudly. It felt as though the walls themselves were listening. Just after 3 in the morning, a sound drifted through the hallway. At first it seemed like part of a dream, soft and rhythmic, but then it grew clearer. Someone was humming. A low, tuneless hum, rising and falling with a strange, unnatural cadence. I slipped out of bed, every instinct warning me not to open my door, yet something deeper urged me to move. When I stepped into the hallway, the humming stopped. Rowan's bedroom door was slightly ajar. Light spilled out into the corridor, flickering faintly. I pushed the door open and froze. Rowan was sitting upright in his bed, eyes wide open, staring at the floorboards beneath his feet. "He is waiting for you, Mummy," he said quietly. "He says you have to see." I swallowed hard. "See what, sweetheart?" Rowan slowly lifted his hand and pointed to a spot near the window. The wooden boards beneath him began to tremble, just slightly, but enough for a thin stream of dust to escape the cracks. "I can't see anything," I whispered. Rowan tilted his head. "Because you're standing too far. Kneel down." My heart hammered painfully. Every part of me screamed not to obey, but I found myself sinking to my knees beside him. The moment my hand touched the floor, coldness rushed into my skin as though the wood itself were alive. Rowan leaned in close. "He likes you," he whispered. Then the floor gave way in a single shudder. A sliver of darkness opened beneath us, just wide enough for an eye to appear. A human eye. But it was wrong. Far too pale, surrounded by skin that looked stretched, almost translucent. It blinked once, slowly, as though adjusting to the light of the room. I jerked back, gasping, but Rowan placed his small hand on mine. "Don't frighten him," he said. "He hasn't seen daylight in a long time." The floorboards snapped shut with a sharp clap, leaving no crack, no sign that anything had been there at all. I stumbled to my feet. "Rowan, what was that? What have you been talking to?" He blinked, as though waking from a dream he couldn't fully remember. "The one who whispers to me," he murmured. "The one who told me your name before I could speak it. The one who travels through the dark places in the house." My stomach twisted. "There is no one else here." Rowan shook his head. "He lives underneath. He said you were born with his mark, just like me." I froze. "His mark?" Before Rowan could answer, a loud crash came from downstairs. A cupboard slamming open. Then another. Followed by the shattering of glass. Rowan slid off his bed. "He wants you to follow the sound." A cold breeze swept through the room, carrying with it the faint smell of damp earth. Rowan walked to the doorway, pausing only long enough to turn and smile. "Mummy, he says the house isn't what you think it is." The lights flickered violently. And somewhere beneath us, something moved. Slowly. Purposefully. Coming closer. The house had fallen silent after the noises from below, but the air remained thick and cold. I clutched Rowan's hand, unsure if I wanted to follow him downstairs or run far away and never return. His small fingers were warm, reassuring, but his eyes held a seriousness no child should carry. "We need to find it," he said simply. "The Red Book." I shivered. The Red Book. The one he warned about. The one that begins where the fire ended. He said it controls them all. I had to remind myself that Rowan was only 6, yet here he spoke as though he understood a darkness beyond human comprehension. I nodded slowly and led him toward the basement door, the wooden steps creaking beneath our weight. Every shadow seemed to stretch, watching, waiting. When we reached the basement, the smell of damp earth hit me. The boards beneath my feet were uneven, and the faint glow from Rowan's small torch barely illuminated the space. I remembered the sketches Amelia had made of the underground library. The Red Book had been placed on a pedestal at the center, surrounded by shadows. The basement seemed larger than I remembered, as if the house had expanded overnight. Shadows moved independently of the light, twisting along the walls. And then I saw it. A pedestal. A book with a bright red cover sat upon it. Dust swirled around the base as though disturbed by some unseen presence. The pages seemed to vibrate faintly, as if breathing. I could not look away. "Do not touch it," Rowan whispered urgently. "He told me not to. He said only someone marked can open it." I swallowed, my throat dry. I glanced at my wrist and remembered the faint birthmark I had never understood, a tiny circular pattern on the inside of my forearm. Could it be the mark he had spoken of? Rowan's small hand pressed against mine. I think we're the ones he meant, he said quietly. I reached toward the book, hesitant. The moment my fingers brushed the cover, the basement shivered violently. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the shadows stretched toward us like fingers. A low humming filled the air, deep and resonant, vibrating in my chest. Rowan grabbed my hand. It knows you are here, he said. And it is not pleased. I could feel the energy radiating from the book. A terrible intelligence, old and cunning. I could almost hear thoughts forming from the pages, secrets too ancient for the human mind. And then a voice, deep, chilling, coming not from the book but from the basement itself. You should not be here. I froze. Rowan squeezed my hand. We were in the presence of something that had waited for centuries, something that had chosen us, and it had just begun to awaken. The red book pulsed faintly, inviting and threatening at the same time. Every instinct screamed to run. Yet I could not pull my hand away. Somewhere, deep beneath the house, footsteps echoed. Slow, deliberate. Coming closer. Rowan whispered, "It is here. He has come." And the basement fell into darkness. Darkness engulfed the basement, yet I could still feel the presence, a living weight pressing down around us. Rowan's small hand squeezed mine tightly, grounding me, reminding me that we were together. The red book lay before us, pulsing faintly with that unnerving light, as if it were breathing. Then a cold wind swept through the room, carrying a whisper that seemed to come from the floor itself. You have come. It has been waiting. The floorboards creaked as though something beneath was moving, stretching, rising. The shadows lengthened, curling toward the pedestal and the book. I could hear them, faint scratching noises, the sound of claws on wood. Rowan stepped closer to the book. Mummy, he wants us to open it. He says it is the only way to understand. I hesitated. Understand what, Rowan? We don't even know what he is. Rowan's eyes glimmered with something terrifyingly adult. He is older than the house, older than everyone. He told me the fire was only the beginning. As I reached for the book again, the air grew heavy, vibrating in resonance with the red cover. Every instinct screamed that this was more than magic, more than shadows. It was alive. It watched. It waited. The moment my fingers brushed the pages, the shadows around us recoiled, then surged outward like waves of darkness. Whispers filled the basement, unintelligible but terrifyingly familiar. The book opened, revealing symbols that burned into my mind. Words I did not know, languages I could not speak. Rowan gasped. He touched the pages too. It knows us, he said. It knows our names. Our fears. Our past. A sudden movement from the corner of the basement caught my attention. Something emerged from the darkness, tall, thin, a silhouette with no clear features, moving with a fluid, unnatural grace. It circled us, whispering in a language I could not understand. The book pulsed stronger. Red light spilled across the walls, painting shadows that danced and writhed. I could feel Rowan trembling beside me, yet he held onto my hand, unafraid. Mummy, he said, voice steady. He wants you to read. I forced myself to focus. My mind spun, every nerve alight with fear. Slowly, I traced a symbol with my finger on the first page. It felt like it burned a path into my soul. The whispers intensified, growing into words I could almost comprehend. Seek the three. Bind the three. Protect the three. Before I could understand, the basement shuddered violently. Dust rained down, and the shadows coalesced into shapes, humanoid forms, faceless, whispering, circling, waiting. Rowan pulled me back. Mummy, don't stop. He will know if you hesitate. I swallowed my terror and pressed my hand fully onto the page. Knowledge flooded my mind. Names, places, histories long forgotten. The fire, the books, the children chosen. And beneath it all, a presence older and darker than anything I had ever imagined. The basement trembled again. The shadows recoiled, then surged upward, and I felt it, the presence of something that had waited centuries to be understood, to be released. Rowan's whisper was calm now, eerily calm. He is awake. I looked into the red glow of the book, into its living light, and realized we had crossed the point of no return. Whatever was beneath the house, whatever had marked Rowan and me, was fully aware. Watching. Waiting. And it was only the beginning. The basement shivered beneath us, shadows stretching and twisting with every heartbeat. Rowan's small hand remained tight around mine, yet his eyes shone with a strange calm I could not comprehend. The red book lay open between us, its pages pulsating like a heartbeat, alive with knowledge too vast and too old to fully understand. Then I heard it, a deep, resonant voice, not from the book, not from Rowan, but from beneath the floorboards themselves. Finally. The shadows converged toward us, forming a shape that seemed human, yet wrong in every detail. Faceless, elongated limbs, and eyes that glimmered faintly in the red glow. The air vibrated with power, as though the house itself was alive and breathing. Rowan stepped forward, pulling me with him. Mummy, he is showing us. We are the last of the ones marked to control the three. The three books. The three forces. I swallowed, fear curling in my stomach. The books, the forces. He nodded. The first brings them. The second hides them. The third controls them. We are the guardians. It's why he has been watching. A cold wind swept through the basement, carrying the whispers of children long gone, voices that twisted around my mind. I realized then that the presence beneath the house had not been waiting for me, it had been waiting for the birthright I carried, the legacy in Rowan and me. I took a deep breath and pressed my hand fully onto the pages of the red book. Symbols glowed brighter, and suddenly, I understood. The book revealed a lineage, a map of guardians through centuries, those who had kept the forces in balance and those who had tried to unleash them for power. The faceless shadow paused, and for the first time, I felt its attention focus entirely on me. The whispers fell silent. It tilted its head, then lowered its enormous hand toward the book, as if testing whether I was worthy. Rowan whispered, "It knows. It knows you are the one." I nodded, trembling, and pressed my hand harder, feeling energy surge into me. The basement walls shook violently. Shadows writhed, clawing at the walls, yet they obeyed, bending around us like the tide yielding to the moon. The red book's light engulfed the room. Names, events, centuries of history burned into my mind, leaving me dizzy yet aware of the immense responsibility now resting on my shoulders. The shadow let out a long, hollow sigh. Then, it vanished. The basement fell silent. Rowan pulled me into a tight hug. "Mummy, we are ready. The three are ours to protect. We can stop them from falling into the wrong hands." I hugged him back, feeling both the weight of centuries and the resolve to protect what had been entrusted to us. Outside, the storm had passed. The first light of dawn crept through the windows, illuminating the red book now resting calmly on the pedestal. We had faced the darkness beneath the house. We had awakened the hidden legacy. And though the journey had only begun, I knew one thing for certain: together, Rowan and I would guard the forces of the three books, and no shadow would break our family again.